And we are live streaming on Riverside.fm. Also, you can catch the stream on, I have two YouTube channels, Twitch.tv. And if that's not enough, I'm also streaming on my Facebook channel. So you're catching me Facebook Live. So some of you are probably getting notifications. Saxophonist Anthony Smith is live on Facebook. This is because I'm streaming from the Riverside.fm platform, talking nothing but sports. And I've been kind of busy because I've just been talking sports lately and, hyping up some of the tournaments that are going on the AAU scene. I know there's one out there going on in Kentucky. If it doesn't start today, I think it starts tomorrow. It's the TFN Run for Roses. I know some teams out there, so I want to wish them the best of luck. Also, I know that MoCan EYBL 16U will be out there in Las Vegas. Don't y'all be in those slot machines. Let me tell y'all's mamas. Anyway, I am not alone today. A guy I've been waiting to present to some of you and introduce to others. He's all the way, and I have permission to say this, he is in the land of not enchantment, but the land of entrapment, as he calls it. Out there in New Mexico, he's the voice of Western New Mexico University. He's repping their shirt right now. Is that purple, as a matter of fact?
It is.
Oh, so he's sporting the color of royalty. Well, he is broadcast royalty too. None other than my good friend and brother from another mother, Ed Nunez. Ed, welcome to the show. Finally, we get to see your mug on screenshot.
I don't know if that's so good, man. It might have been better, on the phone. But it's funny because I live in Albuquerque, but I broadcast in Silver City, New Mexico, which is 3.5-4 hours away from Albuquerque. And this will be my 6th year coming up to be the voice of Western New Mexico. But I must tell you, I'm a New Mexico Lobo, cherry and silver all the way through. When I broadcast in Silver City, I'm going to pump up the Mustangs, but I went to UNM. I'm a Lobo, and we have a Pit Press podcast, which I think you've seen, that's gained some traction. We just had Grand Canyon joining the Mountain West Conference earlier than we thought as a basketball-only school, and we had the guy last night on from Lopes Radio, and Bryce Drew, the coach of Grand Canyon, has made 4 NCAA tournaments in 5 years. We think it's a great addition to the Mountain West Conference. We're losing Utah State, Colorado State, Boise State, and one more school that it'll come back. We're losing 4 schools. So we think Grand Canyon is a great addition. We had the guy, like I said, on from Lopes Radio last night. And but right around the corner, Western New Mexico plays their first football game August 30th in Silver City. I cover only home games, Anthony. If I covered road games, I wouldn't be married to my lovely wife anymore because I wouldn't be around. I'd be gone all the time. So that's my retirement job, and I'm glad to join you today on the A-Train podcast, man. It's always good to talk to you.
Man, it's always good to have you. You always have a lot of good insight, man, and I'm just elated to have you on the live show because this has been a long time in the makings. You had to scroll down through your email. You probably found it in the spam or the junk mail finally because sometimes they end up there. And when I seen the email that, is this it? I'm like, yes, that's it. Let's get this show on the
Yeah, no, I caught it. It was still there. So, yeah, no, easy.
That's a good thing. So, man, what has been going on? Now, I have to say this. You might not like this. I have to cheer for Jody Adams. I'm sorry. I know that look on your face like, do you really? Well, see, Jody Adams used to be here at Wichita State University as the women's basketball coach. And let me tell you how humble she is. She spent some time at Derby High School. And I don't believe it was as a head coach either. That's how humble she is. They say some things happened while she was at Wichita State. I still find some of it hard to believe. I just figured it's a change. It was a changing of the times, and players aren't built the way they used to be. And you have to realize Jody Adams is cut from that Tennessee cloth, Pat Summitt.
I remember that cloth.
Do I need to say anything else?
Yeah.
So I hope that she succeeds out there at New Mexico State. What, this is like her third year out there for? I mean, even though that's the NBA, I'm pretty sure you keep up with that kind of information. So I'm pretty sure she's doing something right. So I got to trip at least Jody Adams. So
Anytime we mention the, and you always mention Wichita State, who used to be in the Missouri Valley Conference and competed against New Mexico State. I always think of Antoine Carr and
Cliff Livingston, Xavier McDaniel.
Oh, I got to tell you a story real quick. We had a G League team here last year, or just below the G League team that Cliff Livingston coached, the Santa Ana Thunder, and they were only here a year, but I covered them. Me and my son took turns in broadcasting, and I was able to interview Cliff more than once, who I love to death, a good man. And I asked one of my friends who was involved with the team, you're going to love this story, right? Because we know you and I are older, right? We know Cliff was a heck of an NBA player and a great college player. We know his background, right? The guy, he went to the Bulls and really helped them on their first run, to the three titles, the first three titles they won. And, so I asked my friend, I said, hey, man, Cliff's got 3 rings, right? Cliff's got 3 rings. Do these dudes listen to him? Because, I'm wondering, Cliff's, it's got the pedigree. And my friend said, nah, man, they really don't. They look, they're looking for them, looking their clicks, their social media. And I was like, man. And so you mentioned it's a different game with different players. To them, Cliff doesn't. Now, you and I know what a dog Cliff was. We know what a great player he was. When I met him, I'm like, man, he's a really, really good guy. I interviewed him twice after the game, and really good person. And I don't know why he isn't an assistant in the NBA yet, but that's another story. But anyway, I had to tell you that one. You mentioned Cliff Livingston was a heck of a player. But these days, it doesn't. Players don't care about history, Anthony. They don't care, man. It doesn't matter. And you and I, we love history.
And I always say it like this, whether it be in sports or in life, in order to know where you're going to, you have to look back in history to see where you came from. And it's not just from the day you was born, but you have to look at your family tree, look at your family history, look at where you came from. So in essence, on the basketball court, look back at the history, look at those who have paved the way for you, which is why that's going to lead right into this right here. The most controversial figure, the most polarizing figure right now, WNBA, Caitlin Clark. And I'm going to put this disclaimer. I have nothing against Caitlin Clark. I just have something against the state of Iowa and Indiana Fever fans because they act as if Caitlin's the only player they've ever heard of, to which, if you remember when Caitlin Clark accepted her Time Magazine Athlete of the Year, she almost lost some fans because of this right here. She said, I've worked for everything I've earned, but I have to admit, I benefit from white privilege. That didn't sit well with her fans. And then when she paid homage to those who paved the way for her to be where she's at, if I can use the words of Kendrick Lamar, she mentioned a lot of players who didn't look like her. She lost another segment of fans because they thought she dropped the ball. Who's that guy outkicked the coverage? That guy, he was like, Caitlin, what are you doing? Why you had everything in the palm of your hand. You just lost it. Now we fast forward when you see that she's ranked the 9th best guard in the WNBA, and Colin Cowherd gets in his feelings and say that the league is being petty. You know, and I know for a fact, if anybody's going to know more about the game, it's those who play for and against her. Your thoughts on that?
I read what you sent me, and I'm going to say this year's been a mixed bag for her because she's been hurt. First, she had a quad. Now, and you and I've had a groin injuries, and those take a long time to heal. I don't care, what kind of shape you're in; they take a while. So it's a mixed bag this year. She hasn't played much, and the Fever actually beat Minnesota? Beat them pretty good. Beat the Liberty. They're on a little bit of a roll here. Right. So I'm going to tell you this now. I'm an NBA guy since '72. I had never really watched much in WNBA. My wife loves Caitlin Clark, so we went to Phoenix last year and watched the Mercury play Indiana in Phoenix last. If we were thinking of doing it again. Now you mentioned I played, I coached, I officiated. Now I broadcast. That doesn't make me an expert. I've been around the game a long time. I like her game a lot. I do. I think she can shoot the ball. We've seen that. She can play make. Dave, yeah, I'd tell you this though, that a couple of games that I saw this year, they're coming at her a little bit more physical. They were physical with her last year. You're putting long and athletic people on her, and this year's, like I said, been a mixed bag. I think she's a wonderful player. I do. There's also been better, good players before her that were in the NBA. Diana Taurasi, how long was she around? Lisa Leslie, Rebecca Lobo. There's been great players, Cheryl Swoops, that came before her. And so I think it's tough for her too, though, because if she pays homage and doesn't pay enough homage, they try to rough her up a little bit and give her some of this. And I think, to me, last year, I think you and I talked about it on one show, there's going to be a part of that. When you come in as a rookie, a hyped rookie, WNBA, NCAA, NBA, they're going to give you some, and I thought she took it and took it well. My thing is this, now it's time to start, hey, you give me one, I'm going to give you one back within the game. And I thought some of the refs, they were complaining, some of the fans. My thing is I've reffed, not at that level, but the referees have to take care of things that aren't basketball plays. And you know what they are. If I'm going up and people are hitting me in the air or, not basketball plays, you've got to take care of that. The suspensions have to come down. But going back to your point, I think she's a great player. I really do. This year hasn't been the year she probably – and the people, you know how they are, Anthony. They'll say she didn't train hard enough. Why is she getting hurt so much? That's the way things are. But I think she's a great player, and she's certainly not the ninth best player in the WNBA. But I think for her, it's one of those things, no matter what she says or does, she's darned if she does, darned if she doesn't.
Right.
So I think she's great for the league. But again, there's great, I think it's made me kind of look at the WNBA a little bit different and say that there are very good players besides her in the league.
Right. And to that point also, I on my other podcast, I had to put it out there, and I even made a video short. I always said I'm not a Caitlin Clark hater. I like Caitlin Clark the player. I also like Caitlin Clark the person because she will, after enough is said, she will try to squash it. But at the same token, I mean, it's the toxic fan bases that get me. A lot of what they say, they're much like the refs. They got to make sure it's a basketball play. And a lot of people are talking about things that they really don't have a clue. See, the ninth best guard, like I say, it means that there are players who vote her the ninth best guard, not the ninth best player overall, but the ninth best guard. That means they know the game more than a Colin Cowherd will probably ever know it. And on top of that, Dick Vitale, he had to jump in. Not only did he think that, it was being petty, but he thought there was some racial overtones. I'm like, Dick Vitale, you just need to stick to men's college basketball because you're going to say something and you're going to stick your foot in your mouth.
Which he's probably done before. We go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the guys I respect, but it just seems like there are some guys that are talking into arenas that they're not comfortable with, and they should just leave it alone. Plain and simple. I mean, I'm not the biggest guy. I couldn't tell you everything, but I mean, I know that let's flip it to Angel Reese. She would be much better if she just didn't say a lot. Plain and simple. Sometimes she's fighting battles that she don't even have to fight. Just keep playing the game. Be a double machine. I had to do some research on that too. So everybody's talking about, well, she get a lot of rebounds. I'm like, well, rebounds isn't a stat. But if you really want to know, she's averaging like 12.9 rebounds a game, 13, 14 points a game. She's a double machine. Mm-hmm. To which only four rebounds, she's only averaging like 4 offensive rebounds a game. So it's not like she's throwing up bricks and rebounding on shots. She's limiting the other team's second half chances. That's called good defense right there.
Right.
So what are people talking about?
I think with her, she came out last year too and said, I know that people are watching the WNBA not just because of one player, they're watching because of me. She said that. So,
right.
When you say stuff like that, they're going to put heat on you. Right. They've asked her about it. And she said the last time somebody asked her about it, she said, no, next question. Yeah. So, and again, let's face it, Caitlin Clark gets a lot of attention, got a lot of, so I think when in Anthony, let's say you and I were playing in the league and, we see that and you see Caitlin Clark on the schedule and your teammates are going to say, you know what? You get tired of hearing about it, right? And because there's players in that league that say, hey, look, we're good too. We've got a good team. We've got a good product. Why is it all about her? That's just life. So when they face Indiana, there's going to be a little something extra in the bag if they can do it. It's just the way it is. Right. It's a rivalry. They're saying, hey, Indiana, they lost in the first round of the playoffs. Why are they getting all this attention? Why is she getting all the attention? Although if you know ball, basketball, you cannot disrespect her game. She can play. I don't care what anyone says. She can play. Yeah. There's no doubt about it.
Now, I'm going to throw this at you, too. Here's what I meant to say. My mind went blank, so I had to fill in my blank mind. If you look at the history of the WNBA, which was founded in 1996, and they launched in 1997, Rebecca Lobo was the second player picked in the WNBA draft in 1997 before the season started. Rebecca Lobo, UConn. One of the best point guards to play the game, and end up calling her career quits to concentrate on social injustice endeavors and free a man from jail. That would be Maya Moore. What school did she go to? UConn. Diana Taurasi was watching a video of Caitlin Clark. What school did she go to? UConn. Paige Buchers, getting ready to come out of college. Diana Taurasi says, I think she'll be a good player. But what she said about Caitlin Clark was she looks real good playing against 18-year-olds, but wait till she comes into the league. Yeah, she's going to be playing against grown women. But do you get the correlation there? Now, she's praising Paige Buchers before she even gets drafted. But Paige also comes from that UConn lineage. Mm-hmm. Seems like there's a little UConn bias within the WNBA. I said on my other podcast, I said there is a sorority in the WNBA and it has UConn stamped all on it, which is why Caitlin gets no love. But if you're from UConn, you're going to get all the love. Now, people listening at this, looking at this may say, dude, that doesn't make any sense. But the history I just gave you, to me, it makes a lot of sense. What you think about that?
Gino Armiena has run a great program there, and I think it was just recently Paige Buchers, when they won the championship this year, went up to him behind him and kind of shoved him. They have that kind of relationship. They have a, she said that he was very hard on her, but they have that bond there. So there's no way Diana Taurasi is going to speak ill of any, former Connecticut player. They have a sisterhood, like people from Villanova. They showed Jalen Brunson and Hart all together in that commercial. They have a brotherhood. There's no way they're going to speak ill of each other, and there's no way. And again, it's kind of us against them. In other words, hey, we had a good program at UConn, and they're talking about Iowa that made one Final Four and they lost. So that's the thinking, right? We're athletes. We know how things go. Why is she getting all that attention? So when we play her, let's show her. Let's give her a little something. That doesn't mean that she can't play, but they want to make sure that people know, hey, UConn had dominated in college. Why are we not getting looked at? Why are we not getting the recognition we feel we deserve? And again, Caitlin Clark, let's face it, Anthony, you mentioned the WNBA since 1997-98. They put out a good product. But when Caitlin Clark came in the league, it's not just due to her, circumstances. Ratings went up. They started getting collective bargaining, more money in collective bargaining agreements, getting paid more. It's not just her, but some of it was her. And I think people have to acknowledge that. And you mentioned some of the pettiness. I don't think that's not going to continue because, again, she's been out, and I can already hear it. She didn't train. Why is she getting groin injuries and quad injuries? She didn't train hard enough. You already know that's going to come. You already know people are going to say that because that's the way it is. They're looking for any armor, any chink in the armor, man. And so there's people that are wishing, and let's be honest about that as well, for her to fail. And so far she hasn't, but she has been injured a lot this year, and we'll see what she's like when she gets back on the lineup.
And here's another thing that got fans in the uproar. Some fans were in the uproar because a commentator, because as long as the narrative was Angel Reese versus Caitlin Clark, it was racial. But now you can't say that because if you remember that game they played against Connecticut, that wasn't racial. That was perseverance or preservation, as they would say. Hate to say it like that, but that's what it was. Now a commentator made these remarks, and you hinted on it earlier. They appear to be playing better without her. And I made these comments in a video short. I am not a Caitlin Clark hater. I like Caitlin Clark. However, to me, she's more like Jalen Brunson or maybe Trae Young more than she is a Steph Curry. That being said, if you watch the New York Knicks or the Atlanta Hawks, when Jalen Brunson is doing his thing or when Trae Young is doing his thing, the team tends to stand around and watch. But when those players are out of the game, well, in New York's case, they might not be quite as fluent. But with Atlanta, the ball probably tends to move a little bit better. You got more ball movement, you got more screens, you got more cuts. And that's the case with the Indiana Fever now. And they've had to adjust twice. The first time, they might look lethargic, but now there's more ball movement. You got players like Aaliyah Boston, who was a first-round pick the year before Caitlin got there. She's flourishing now. You got other players that are stepping up. Now they have more continuity in the offense. There's more flow to the offense. Now, if Caitlin is who she is, she's on the sidelines, she's processing and watching this. Now it's just a matter of her figuring out, how do I get my game to match with their game and make this a better team game? That way they won't be as reliant on me, and I could just fit in with the flow, and there's less standing around. They can still have that same ball movement if she's learning while she's injured. Then, in essence, guess what? That will make Indiana a very, very dangerous team. That's my whole take on that.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but a couple of things. They brought in a new coach and some new players, so I think at the beginning of the year, you saw a little bit of a struggle in adapting to a new system, and now that she's out, I think players. And to your point, I never thought. I think she's a willing passer, spreads the floor well, sees the floor well. Last year when the season started, players had a problem holding on to her passes. She had some turnovers, but some of them were due to players dropping easy passes. So I can understand where people would say right now they're playing pretty well and doing well without her, but they're not the same team without her for sure, and they won't advance without her. But to your point, I think she'll see that on the sideline, and she's a smart, high IQ player, as we talk about, and I think she has a very high basketball IQ, and will go in there, works the two-man game well, drives, kick, will find you for the pocket pass, bounce pass, catches it, score. I think again, give Indiana credit right now for playing well without her, but they won't go far without her, believe me. And I think to your point, she has a high enough IQ to say, okay, this has been working. I don't need to come in and impose my 30 points a game will. Let's see what, she can make adjustments there, I think.
Right. As a matter of fact, there was an uproar, and then we're going to move on from Caitlin Clark when Natasha Howard, her teammate, made this comment. She said, Caitlin is my little sister. Now, you know, and I know, like I say, my brother from another, that's a sign of endearment.
Right.
But them fans took it as a slap in the face. And all Natasha Howard was saying to Caitlin Clark, and we're going to move on, is you don't have to do it alone. You have help. This is in Iowa. At Iowa, you had to be the Swiss Army knife to do all, be all, end all. Here, you got help. Let us help you. And the more you let us help you, the more this team will be successful. And fans didn't see it like that. And then when you have a commentator make the statement that the team appears to play better without Caitlin Clark, that's almost like adding more fuel to the fire. But the reality is, these are grown women. And if Natasha Howard, and let me say it like this, and you hate to really do this, but it's the obvious. Natasha Howard, who is a black player, saying Caitlin Clark is my little sister, who's a white player. Yes, some people aren't going to see it the way you and me see it. But all my life, I grew up, if me and a person meshed and clicked well, oh, he's like my brother. It didn't matter what the color of his skin was. In other words, basketball should be about a person's skill set, not the
Yeah,
color.
let me just comment on that real quick because I know you want to move on. Look, man, this is America, and I just want to make. I don't want to make this political, but recently, I felt as a brown person that people that look like me are under siege, and I live here, man. I was born here, and so I had a black friend of mine. He just said this to me. Him and I are he always says the same thing you do, brother from another mother. Him and I worked together. We played ball together, man. We've seen our families go through some things together, and we are. So when people say they're sisters in that sense of teamwork, camaraderie in the locker room, yes. So people have a problem with that. They better better get lost, man. There's a lot of other things that they should worry about. That used to be the essence of America, the backbone of America. Is that you could? I went to Hodden High School here in Albuquerque, just down the street. Nowhere was there more diverse school. When you walk down the hall, you had poor people, rich people, Native Americans, Asian Americans, African Americans, Mexican Americans. You had it all, man. So I don't see that. It's so dumb to me that people are. I think again. I don't want to make it political at all, but it's crazy where people are under siege and and being taken off the street and disappeared. That's crazy to me, man. I'm sorry. I didn't. That's my little commentary for the day. But
Hey,
I
it,
don't.
it was worth it was worth being said. It was worth being said.
Yeah.
So now we are going to transition because the Cleveland Browns, I promise they have to be the biggest joke. And the reason I say that, I'm pretty sure you saw the other article I sent you.
I did.
So Deshaun Watson is the mentor to Shador Sanders. Okay. However, the quarterback coach is the biggest critic of Deion Sanders. If that doesn't have combustible written all on it, or is it just the Cleveland way? Make that make sense.
Oh.
How can we make this make sense? I mean, in that article, as a matter of fact, all right, we know they have two rookies because the other one is Dylan Gabriel. And it's looking more like Gabriel is the one most likely to get a chance to start. But this part right here, Sanders, well, if I can pull it up here, all right, the Cleveland Browns are in an interesting spot heading into training camp with five. Can I do Bill Cosby real quick? Me and my wife Camille and my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 children. The Cleveland Browns.
I hadn't heard that in a while, man.
The Cleveland Browns and their
That's
five quarterbacks. Now the saying goes like this: if you have two quarterbacks, you don't have no quarterbacks. If you have five quarterbacks, you got a headache. If I'm Shador Sanders, one or two things is going to have to happen. He's going to have to work his way up that depth chart, and he's going to have to be successful, or he's going to have to find the quickest plane, not bus, not Uber, but the quickest plane out of town that's going to put him in a good spot to succeed. And now you got your quarterback coach talking about your daddy. Now, we know growing up as kids, there's two things you didn't do. You don't talk about my mama. And if you had a relationship with your daddy, you don't talk about my dad. You can talk about me, but keep parents out of it. Your thoughts on that?
I got to say this: that Deshaun Watson, who's not going to play, he's got an Achilles. He's had problems there, right? They signed him to a $230 million contract, and he had some good years at Houston, but hasn't been very good at Cleveland. So him mentoring Sanders, who knows if Deshaun Watson will ever play another down for the Cleveland Browns. The other thing is, I think, I don't know if you'd agree or not, but they haven't had great success in finding quarterbacks for a long, long time anyway. Now, they had Baker Mayfield in there, and he did not play well with them. He didn't. And then he moves on to Tampa Bay and it plays well there. So I think, you mentioned the 5 quarterbacks. One of them is Joe Flacco, who's what, 30, 40 years old, 41, who's solid.
60.
Yeah, but you don't want him as your starter. I thought when I read the list of quarterbacks, I thought Shedeur Sanders had a solid chance to be the starter if he put into work. I thought he had a solid chance. He was not picked to the 5th round, and there's a lot of controversy about that. Now, one of the things about Deion, that's when people were, when the Cowboys job came open, one of my friends in town thought, oh, Deion's going to be the head coach at Dallas. And there's no way. Jerry Jones is never going to hire him. He's going to too much of a shadow to take away all the attention Jones wants. And plus, I've got to ask this, and I like Deion personally. Now, he's got a tremendously huge ego. We know that. What kind of coach is he now? I'm saying he turned Colorado around. They got to a couple bowl games, but you retired Shedeur Sanders' number. That did not sit well with me because you usually wait 5-10 years to do that. His other son was a good player, but neither one of them had the look. Deion Sanders might have been one of the most incredible athletes we've ever seen, ever. The guy could run like a deer. Geez, that guy was amazing.
Man, yes.
He really was. So, but he's got the ego. Where is he coaching the team or just? And I always wondered this, or just he wants to make sure his kids are in a good spot, or is he concerned about the whole team? And the comment by the Cleveland Browns quarterback coach, it makes you kind of wonder. So there's been others that have said that about Deion's coaching as well. I don't know, but I still think Shedeur has a chance there. I do. If he puts in the work, it's not like they've got Tom Brady there. They've got 5 quarterbacks, and none of them have stood out there. None of them, Deshaun Watson is hurt. I don't know if he's ever going to play for them again anyway. Dylan Gabriel has a chance from Oregon. Joe Flacco, I'm not even sure who the other 2 are. I think Sanders has a very good chance. But the coach saying that about Deion, I'm surprised Deion. I don't know if you've seen this, Anthony. I'm sure you have. If anyone says anything about Deion, that is the thinnest skinned brother. One of the thinnest skinned brothers I've ever seen. He's very thin skinned, man. You can't say anything about him without him coming. And Tim McCarver said this one time when he was playing for the Braves. He took a shot at Deion because he was flying back in a helicopter and going to play for the Falcons, then the Braves. And in the clubhouse when the Braves won the pennant, Deion Sanders kept dousing McCarver with water because he got mad when McCarver called him out. So he's got a very, very big ego. So I'm surprised we haven't seen him come back and start attacking the Cleveland Browns quarterback coach. But yeah, I still think all that said, go ahead.
And as we speak, there was another article, and I didn't get to save that one, but there was talks about, is Deion committed to Colorado now that his sons are gone? To me, I would say you don't go out and flip one of the top-ranked quarterbacks from Lincoln Riley if you're not committed. Now, granted, he's had some health issues and had to miss some time, but tell me anybody who has health issues is going to be at work all the time. You're going to take care of your health. I wasn't even on my podcast grind when I had this heart surgery done. I mean, depending on what your health issue, sometimes it will take something out of you. So I'm glad to be back where I'm at. And to those who are watching, I want to say thank you for your continued prayers. I go back to work next week. Can't wait to get back to work. Granted, I'm not an early bird. I'm not thrilled with having to go in at 6 o'clock in the morning, but hey, it'll work. We'll make it do what it do. But, I'm just saying, it's funny how everybody has something to say about somebody's problem until they end up with those problems. And they're like, oh, but I think that Deion is committed. I think Deion, and since you said ego, his ego, if that be the case, is not going to let him just walk away from Colorado, even though his sons are gone. And he wants to prove to the world that I brought this kid in to quarterback this team. He's a 5-star prospect. We're going to put some players around him, and we're going to still win ball games. I believe that's his ego. I believe that's his mindset. So I believe he has an ego, but at the same time, I also believe he's humble enough, and he wants to prove that it wasn't just about Shedeur. It wasn't just about Shiloh. It wasn't just about Travis Hunter. and he wants to prove that I can go out and recruit talent. And like I say, that was evidence when he flipped a 5-star prospect like the number 1, number 2 rated quarterback from Lincoln Riley. How often does that happen?
You know what? That's a good point. I think to your point about Travis Hunter, we'll see if Hunter's one of the first two-way stars in the NFL for a long time. So I think that's a good point about Deion.
Yeah. And speaking of Travis, I didn't even like the way they covered his draft. I mean, the media has a way of manipulating people's mind. And I know you're in media, but this won't apply to you. Let's talk about Deion Sanders a little bit more at length because of the fact, a lot was made. Well, my son's not going to play for these teams. Now, some label him as an overbearing dad. Like he's involved in his son's business too much. Let's go back, some 30-something years. Wasn't there a guy by the name of Archie Manning who said, my boys aren't going to play for certain teams. I want them to be in the best position to win. So now we have a double standard because one is applauded for stepping in, making sure his boys are successful. Another one is deemed as an overbearing dad. And then on top of that, instead of the media talking about Travis Hunter and his accomplishments in school, from Jackson State to Colorado, his accomplishments in the classroom, and we're not talking about taking scuba diving and shoestring tying classes, taking physiology, psychology, and also a dance instructor. Instead of talking about that, the focus was more on, well, his dad was just released from prison just in time to see him. So it was more about something that was a negative, trying to spin it as a rags to riches. You get the point? Every story doesn't have to be rags to riches. Them Sanders kids, they didn't want for nothing. They didn't need for nothing. If you want to say they were born with the silver spoon in their mouth, okay. But they didn't have to suffer for nothing. And all Deion wanted was for his boys professionally to be in the best situation. But like I said, he's labeled as overbearing, whereas Archie Manning was applauded. So you see a double standard right there.
We've seen that for a long time, man. And I'll tell you a funny story. Bill Russell in his book Second Wind would say that when there was a scuffle on the floor when the black players were out there, they call it rioting. And when the other white players were out there, they would call it more of a scuffle. So that's just the way Bill Russell said that. And so I think you're mentioning that about Archie Manning. Archie wanted he didn't want him to play for San Diego at that time. And he went to New York and won 2 Super Bowls. So, but I don't see anything. Deion Sanders played in the pros. Archie played for a long time, right? Quarterback for the Saints and the Oilers. He played for some bad teams. Archie was a quarterback. Yeah. Oh my God. Archie was good, but there was no free agency. He couldn't leave that place, man. He was stuck there. So, he made sure that of course, his other son Peyton went to Indianapolis, but he wanted Eli not to go to San Diego, and it worked out. He won 2 Super Bowls. I don't see anything wrong with Deion Sanders, who played in the league, saying, he's going to watch. Of course, he's going to watch out. That's his baby, man. He's going to watch out for his son. I didn't see anything wrong with it. And people said that cost him some draft spots, and there was some collusion among NFL general managers about the draft. And I don't see how that guy slipped as far as he did. I think Mel Kiper came out and said he didn't understand it. He's only been around the NFL draft for how many years? 40 years, 40 plus years. Right. So there was some strength. That's what I'm saying, Anthony. I think Shedeur has a chance to prove himself. If he puts in the work, he could get that job. If he really works hard and forgets about all these other distractions of who's saying what, and just be a pro. What is his father's? Believe me, his father. That guy was so dang good. They said he hardly lifted weights. He was so good, man. He didn't have to put in that work because he was that good. Shedeur has to put in the work, man.
Man, I mean, it's crazy when you look at how that whole draft process played out. But like you said, and what makes it even more intriguing, you hear them talking about Dylan Gabriel has a better chance of starting than Shador does. But every time they show videos, it's always Shador. And what they're saying about him is he's the first one to practice and the last one to leave because he's putting in extra work.
Tells me something.
Sounds like nobody really wants to talk about the work ethic that he's putting in. The most polarizing thing I think is going to happen this year is this right here. How does Shador handles handle the situation without looking on the sideline and seeing his dad right there, and how Dion does not seeing his son under center? Those are going to be two of your biggest headline stories. If Colorado gets out the gate, say 3-0, there's going to be a lot of people saying, looking like this. They ain't gonna know what to say. You're just gonna have that look like, didn't see this coming. And lo and behold, if Shador gets to even touch the field during preseason and he looks good, there's gonna be a lot of this. Didn't see that coming. And if Cleveland ain't careful, and if they don't play their cards right, I just have a funny feeling. This may be far fetched, but as much time as Tom Brady was spend with Deion Sanders and giving advice to Shador Sanders, I wouldn't be surprised if a year or two, if Cleveland don't play this right, Tom Brady has their number on speed dial.
He's a part owner right now, of the Raiders. So I think it's good that he's giving advice to Shador and he's listening. I still, he will see the field in preseason. I guarantee it. I think, like I said, I think he's got a solid shot. You say he's putting in the work. I believe he is. So he has a chance to prove people wrong. Remember, he went in the 5th round. He's supposed to go in the 1st or 2nd. There has to be a sizable chip on his shoulder. And if he has any kind of ego, and we all do, man, athletes have egos. They're like, okay, let me prove this. He's a Sanders. His dad was one of the greatest, athletes we've ever seen in my lifetime. I've never seen anybody. When I saw him run the bases with Cincinnati, I'm with the Reds. I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't really want to see anybody faster. So that's where the lineage he comes from. And someone told him you were supposed to be selected. You went to the 5th round, man. I bet you someone's telling him every day, hey, you ain't no good, man. You went to the 5th round. You got Joe Flacco over here. 50-year-old Joe Flacco's in front of you. So,
I thought he was 70.
And you know what? All due respect to Joe Flacco, by the way. All due respect. Joe Flacco's solid QB, man. But I still think Shador Sanders has a solid chance to be the starter. I really do.
All right. Since we're on football, we're going to transition to another topic. And I know I didn't throw this at you, but we're about to make another transition here. I saw a article, actually it wasn't even an article, it was on Facebook, that says, Dak Prescott. You knew we couldn't have a show without saying something about Dallas. Come on now. It's all in on training camp. In other words, he's reporting to training camp. And all the comments starts rolling in. Oh, yeah, he's all in on leading the league in interceptions. I had to stop before I scrolled and responded to that. You know these chat rooms can be so toxic. And if you spend any time past your time in it, you might find yourself checking into a psychiatric ward at your local hospital. But I had to check this guy. I said, really? I said, you make that comment as if that's the only thing Dak Prescott does is lead the league in interception. Mind you, the year before, he made a promise. He was going to cut his interceptions down, and that was coming off of an injury-riddled season that year, too. He only threw, 9, 10 interceptions as he promised? How many touchdowns did he have? 25, 30 touchdowns?
Yeah.
So the touchdown to interception ratio, it was like this right here. And I'm kind of cautiously optimistic. Another person said, "What? Yeah, a 6-11 season. Is that why he's all in?" I'm kind of cautiously optimistic, especially with the acquisition of a Kenny Pickett. Did I say that ain't right?
George Pickens.
George Pickens, the pairing of George Pickens and C.D. Lamb. And I believe C.D. Lamb when he said it like this. He said it's not about one, one A, one B. We're both number one receivers. At the end of the day, it's all about getting wins. Now, here is the black eye or the sore spot. Cavante Turpin getting in trouble doesn't help because I believe the new coaching staff had some schemes that included him. Basically, he would be our Tyreek Hill. So imagine Pickens, Lamb, Turpin. And now let me throw this because I'm still hoping that somebody gets this right. Maybe it's this coaching staff. We don't really have a running game. So why not throw Deuce Vaughn and put him in a slot position? Bubble screen. He has such a low center of gravity. He has such blazing speed. And you get the blockers out there open up a hole for him. Before you know it, he's in the secondary. That's what I envision. So it's like you have speed, and more speed. You have to utilize that speed. You have to outmaneuver the defense. And I believe if we can get Turpin's issue solved and get him back to thinking about football only because we know how dangerous he is. And if you can find a way to utilize Deuce Vaughn's skill set, that offense could be scary good.
I think cautiously optimistic is a good way to put it. George Pickens is playing on a contract year. He had some attitude problems with Pittsburgh, but he gives Dallas that, Brandon Cooks was good, but Brandon Cooks was not the receiver he was in New England. And, he wasn't the same guy. Jalen Tolbert's a good third receiver, but not a starter. Ferguson, the tight end, I expect a bounce back year from him. Elijah Blue, a running back from Texas, watch out for him. He's got speed too. They revamped their line a little bit, got a good guard in the draft. I think their offensive line should be better. Guyton, the left tackle, did not play well last year. Terrence Steele at right tackle has not played well. Those have to improve. They have to improve there with the offensive line. But I look at Dak, and look, you and I have had a lot of talks about this, and there's Dallas Cowboy fans that are skeptical because they have not won anything in nearly 30 years now. So they went all in on Romo. Now it's Dak. And, people would say, oh, last year you and I heard this, Cooper Rush should start. And I'm like, come on, man, let's get serious now. He's a good backup. That's it. He's not a starter. And he did his job as a backup. But Dak Prescott, I'm a big fan. I am. I really I like him as a person. And I think, again, he's got to win. He's got to but the thing that concerns me, I think offensively they could be fine. On the defensive line, do they have enough stout run stoppers? Gap control. Linebackers, Overshawn is out for the year. Is Diggs fully recovered from that knee? So I think they have questions, a lot of questions there. Sam Williams back from a torn ACL. That will help the pass rush. Dante Fowler signed on a one-year deal. That will help. And, Parsons has to sign that deal. I think you're right about the offense. Cautiously optimistic is good. Dak, they say, looks great. It's in great shape. He's had some injuries. He's got to stay healthy for them to do anything at all. I could see 10 to 12 wins. I could see them in the playoff hunt if everything goes. I mean, Pickens is a darn good receiver, Anthony. He's he's darn good, and he's playing for a contract. So hopefully, although some of those immature issues he had in Pittsburgh, hopefully we won't see them in Dallas. But I could see, the other question, and we didn't answer or didn't ask, what kind of coach will Brian Schottenheimer? He's been positive. He's been this. He's been that. We don't know what kind of schemes, what kind of system he's going to run. But we'll see. I think like you, I see, what they have on paper, and I think, hey, things go right, they could be pretty good. But, things, how things have gone there the last couple of years.
Right. So since we're talking about Dallas, let's talk about that NFC East because the team to beat in that division I'm gonna say 1A, 1B, especially if you're a Cowboys fan, the teams to beat in that division. It's gonna always be now Philadelphia Eagles, defending Super Bowl champs, and the Washington don't say Redskins commander. I mean, some people are looking at Jaden Daniels to have a sophomore slump. I don't see it because they gave him some more weapons. That's the scary part. I actually, and I can't believe I'm about to say this, I began to develop such a disdain for the Philadelphia Eagles that I actually started kind of liking the Washington Commanders. And as a Dallas Cowboy fan, we still see them as who they used to be, our biggest rival. Couldn't stand them. But something about me at least made me respect what they did. And I guess this starts with the quarterback position. Some quarterbacks will get your attention, and Daniels got my attention. My thing, is, and I know they're under different ownership, but will he end up being another RG3 situation? And we know how that worked out. Or do you think they got their golden goose?
I like them. I do, and I'm like you though. Back in the day, especially when they played at RFK, I hated them. I did. I really did. I couldn't hate them when Joe Gibbs was the coach because he's a class act, man. I couldn't hate Joe Gibbs. I hated Theismann. Um,
I like Doug Williams though.
Doug, hey man, that game against Denver, that guy, what a brilliant Super Bowl you had. So um, Riggins, the Hogs, we Dexter Manley. But I think Jaden, you remember with RG, he was playing really well. He was playing on a real bad knee, and then I can't remember the coach's name. It'll come to me. Oh man, he's coached the Raiders. It'll come to me in a minute. What is the coach over there when he was coaching at the Redskins? He kept running that quarterback option, and he was hurt. It's like why are you running the RPO? The guy's hurt. He shouldn't even be in the game. And
right.
I thought that derailed his career. I thought that had a lot to do with it. I don't think Daniels is on that path at all. As far as that goes, I think he's going to be okay. And they haven't been good in a while. It took how long did it? So for those people wanting to get rid of Dak Prescott, how long did it take Washington to find their quarterback? A long time. And quarterbacks are not easy to find. I think he's their guy. I think he'll be okay, and I hope he's okay. And I just hope he's not okay when Dallas plays them. Dallas beat them in Washington last year, and Turpin, that amazing return when he spun out and ran it all the way back, and Washington Dallas able to beat them there. So, but I think he's going to be fine, Anthony. I think he'll be okay.
And the NFL decided not to ban, however you want to call it, the brotherly push, the tush push. And that brings me back to this comment that one Micah Parsons even said. He said, it's not up to the league to stop it.
That's right.
It's up to the defense to stop it. And I agree with Micah Parsons. So we know we're going to have the tush push again. How long do you think it'll be before the league say enough is enough? Because we see what Washington, I think it was Washington playing the game, and the guy kept jumping over the line of scrimmage. He says, the referee throws a flag and says, if this happens again, we're going to award the Eagles a touchdown.
I agree with Michael Parsons. Yeah, I agree with what he said, though. And I'm not a Philly fan at all. Stop it. That's the defense's job to stop it. And they've got, but what you just said now, as far as escalating situations and people trying to stop it in different ways to stop it, this might be their last year of it. I don't know. But my thing is, I agree with Micah Parsons. Stop crying. Stop the play, man. They've been very successful with it. They've executed almost to perfection. And you have to give them credit on that. You do. They've got a short yardage play, and it works for them. I don't know what their success rate is. I'd say it's probably over 70%. You're going to keep running it. And what did Herman Boone say? And remember the Titans, 5 plays I run, stop them. So if they're going to run that play, it's coming. Stop the play.
Right.
I look at it.
Here's what I do. If I'm a defensive coordinator, I'm going to look at those offensive linemen that don't get to touch the field, and I'm gonna be like, you guys come here. Guess what? We play Philly. We got a defensive package for them. That package is we're going to use the offensive guys who are the second string offensive linemen. And guess what y'all's job is? Stop it. Put beef against beef. I think that will work.
They're going to be looking for different ways to stop it, man. And, beef is one of them. But I tell you one thing, man, they execute that play very, very well. I have to give them credit. So, there's going to be someone, where's Buddy Ryan when we need him? The late defensive coordinator would have found a way.
I believe Buddy Ryan would actually do something like that too. He would grab those offensive linemen that they're not going to touch the field. They're waiting to just get on the field. And I would run practices with those second string offensive linemen. This is what your job is. We got the Philly package. It's called the Brotherly Love package. I would get me 5 good offensive linemen, strong. That'd be like, let me see, in wrestling terms, that would be like Andre the Giant going up against the Undertaker.
That's funny.
Seriously. I mean, I think
Andre the Giant was a beast, man. That guy was mad.
I think, or Andre the Giant against Yokozuna, big old sumo guy. You put your reserve offensive lineman in on defense just for that particular play, and you practiced it. Now we have a whole new ball game. Because if you look at the makeup of most defenses and the offensive linemen, what's those averages? About 300-pound guys on offensive line.
Yeah. Wait, yeah.
And they can move too. Some of them remind you, was it Larry Allen? If we knew how fast he could run, he ran down a running back.
He did.
But we got 6'5", 315-pound offensive linemen, and you can't move them. And then we have a quarterback who can squat, 600-700 pounds. So he's strong. Get some of those offensive linemen that don't play and put them in your defensive package. And you can still have your defensive linemen as your linebackers, have them up on the line. I believe that's how you stop it. And I better get a coaching job at a high level after, because if someone uses that, they say, we saw this on the podcast, this guy said, this is how you stop the tush. I want to get recognized and I want to get paid.
I'll tell you what, as we speak, people are devising ways to try to stop it. They have to try. So, it's going to be interesting to see what happens this year.
Well, Easy, it has been nice having you on the show today. We got to do this more often.
Always a pleasure, man. Yeah,
so I need to put this out here. My work schedule, I go from third shift. I've been off a whole month because of the surgery and recovering. Once again, thank you for all your continued prayers. But I go back to work next week from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., which means I will probably start doing my shows on either Friday evening or Saturday mornings. So that's the programming note. And y'all will see a lot of me on all my platforms. Going to try to get my buddy Ed in here on a regular basis whenever he's not busy, because I know football season is coming up, so I know he's going to be busy on some Saturdays. But I want to thank you for being on the show. You know my schedule now. We're going to make some things work, because I'm looking for a second hand. I don't think I should do all this talking.
Now, you know what? Anytime you want, Anthony. I really enjoyed it. A lot of great topics today.
Yes, sir. So we're going to bring the train in to the station. And one thing I didn't do, I want to let everybody know what This show is powered by
Riverside FM.
That's right. We're powered by Riverside FM. So until the next time, whenever the next time may be, enjoy the rest of this day. Enjoy the rest of this week. The weekend is coming up. Enjoy it. As they say, this is hump day. Of course, I never get excited about hump day because hump day isn't Friday. And when I go to work at 6 o'clock in the mornings on Fridays, it's not Friday until 2 p.m. That's my theory. So, but until the next time, take care of yourself and each other. God bless. We are out of here.
Thanks, man.
Powered by Riverside FM.